Hey everybody, how you doing? This is about to be a really fun video. This video is by viewer request. So, like I said, this is just a sampling of my stash, but it's kind of going to give us an idea of some typical loadings. So, talking about the 6.5 Creedmoor, 140 grain Hornady, we got a 140 grain Norma, so we got a little trend here, Norma whitetail. Here's another Hornady, 129 grain, another Hornady, 140 grain. There's a little bit of a trend here with 6.5 Creedmoor in there, 140, 140, 140. Then the new Remington Core-Locked, we got 129 grain, and then the Remington Core-Locked, again, 140 grain. Then Barnes, we got a 120 TTSX, the Hornady Full Bore, 120. Those are both some screamers. The Winchester Deer Season XP is also light, 125. This Norma Evo Strike, that's kind of a weird oddball one. They're really light, 93 grainer. And then, I got 2 boxes of that in there. Then over to the 270. Remember, a lot of these were around the 140 ballpark and a couple lighter ones. 270. Here's a 130 grain Federal, 130 grain Remington Core-Lock. That's an older box, isn't it? PMC 130. So far on the 270s we're kind of 130. Hey, look, there's a 140, which is what all those 6.5 Creedmoors were. 140 grain. The new Remington Core-Locked is 130 grain. Then here's a Premier Sirocco Bonded. Those are awesome. 130 grain. So for 270, 130 is kind of common here. Then Winchester, we have a 150 grain Super X. So out of this whole pile, that's the heaviest one right there in the 270. In the PowerPoint, they also load PowerPoint in a 130 grain. There's a double tap, 130 grain. Norma's the 130 grain too. So kind of interesting, but just to put them side by side, 140 seems to be the trend for 6.5 Creedmoor, or you might say that's the sweet spot. And then 270 loadings, it seems that 130 is the sweet spot. My answer, if you're going to go smoke a deer, 270. This is just off the cuff. I haven't even done the numbers yet. But if you're target plinking, you want to go hit a piece of steel at 1,000 yards, 6.5 Creedmoor. But hey, you know what we need to do is take 270 to 1,000 yards. That's what we need to do. 2 of the most common that you guys might have. Remington Core-Locks on the bottom, the yellow and green, and then the new Remington Core-Lock tips, which is those on the top. So for the 270, the Core-Lock tipped is 130 grainer, and the Core-Locked soft points are also 130 grainers. And then the Remington Core-Lock tipped 6.5 Creedmoor is a 129 grain, and the Core-Locked is a 140 grainer. But let's do some calculations, and I'll be right back. Comment down below which one is your favorite. All right, so real quick, let's jump right into it. 270 versus 6.5 Creedmoor. On these tables, green means good, and when we're talking about drop, means less drop. So green means less drop. So if you look at this table, there's yellow, that means kind of medium, then red, that means that's the worst, and then green means the best. So just looking at the drop, this is the drop table, from 100 yards to 200 yards, which one drops the most? The 6.5 Creedmoor, 140 grain Core-Lock, drops 4.1 inches. Which one does the best or drops the least? The 270 Winchester, 130 grain Core-Lock tipped. How about them apples? Go to 300 yards, same thing. You notice the colors stay the same across the entire chart. That 6.5 Creedmoor 140 grain drops the most at every yardage, and the 270 Winchester Core-Lock tipped drops the least amount. It's worth pointing out that 6.5 Creedmoor Core-Lock tipped has the highest BC, and the trajectory stays pretty close to that 270. But hey, we did this all the way out to 1,000 yards. At 1,000 yards, that 270 Core-Lock tipped drops 299 inches, and then the 6.5 Creedmoor Core-Lock tipped drops 312. So it drops a foot more at 1,000 yards. And then the core locks, you can see the numbers there as well. The 270 core lock did better or dropped less than the 6.5 Creedmoor core lock. So drop, when we talk about bow lock drop, 270 drops less than 6.5 Creedmoor. That's the argument with most 6.5 Creedmoor guys. Oh, it's super flat. It drops less. Well, guess what? 270 drops less than 6.5 Creedmoor. Now let's talk about energy. That's important too when we're talking about taking some deer. 270. Nobody's going to argue that that's a good deer cartridge, or not a good deer cartridge, rather. Let's look at the energy. Guess what? Same story there, guys. Very similar story. The winner, the green one all the way across, is the 270 Winchester core lock tipped. Now, I will say, at 1,000 yards, that 6.5 Creedmoor 129 grain core lock tipped passes when it comes to energy. At 1,000 yards, it has the most. But if you look at the table, all the way out to 800 yards, that 270 Winchester has more energy than the 6.5 Creedmoor. And then you can see those charts there as well. But let me go back to the pretty pictures here. So when we go to the bow lock drop, all the way out to 1,000, you can see the yellow line is the 270 Winchester core lock tipped. It has the flattest trajectory. The one that drops the most is the 6.5 Creedmoor 140 grain core lock. Now let's go to the picture of the energy. You can see right at the jump, the yellow line has the most energy at the muzzle. That's the 270 Winchester core lock tipped. And then that yellow line stays on the top, like we said, till 800 yards, where it pretty much goes in line with the green one. But, you know, who's hunting at 800, 900 yards? Hopefully nobody. But, hey, there you have it, guys. 6.5 Creedmoor versus 270. We looked at a couple different loadings, and guess what? 270 does better when it comes to drop and energy retention than 6.5 Creedmoor. The only exception, the only argument that I probably would accept would be that 6.5 has a skinnier boulot, and it's going to buck the wind a little bit better. So your wind drift on the 6.5 Creedmoor is probably going to be a little bit better than the 270. But hey, I showed you a bunch of my 270 and a bunch of my 6.5 Creedmoor factory loadings. We kind of looked at what they are, average, what you get off the shelf. We did the drops and the energy. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know how many of y'all are going to go trade in your 6.5 Creedmoor for a 270 Winchester. I appreciate y'all watching. We got the best viewers on the interwebs. Make sure you're subscribed. We'll catch you on the next one. Hooty-hoo.
Load it up and get it on as soon as you can. 30 on 6, 10 mil, 50 cap. It don't make a difference, man. We like to shoot and make a little boom boom. If you like